Welcome to Module 13 of the MOOC Heritage Tourism. The name of the module is National and Regional Circuits. Today, we shall discuss the first unit of the module. The title of the unit is Buddhist Heritage, Mughal Heritage, and Colonial Circuits. Now, let us discuss about the Buddhist heritage of India. Gautama or Siddhartha, the founder of Buddhism, was born in 563 BC in Lumbini, which is now located in Nepal, in the Sakya Kshatriya clan of Kapilavastu. At the age of 29, Siddhartha left his home in search of truth after he had seen an old man, a sick man, and a dead body. After 6 years of several fruitless attempts, he sat under a peepal tree at Bodh Gaya, and at the age of 35, he attained enlightenment or nirvana. Since then, he came to be known as Buddha, which means the enlightened one. The emergence of Buddhism resulted in nurturing a profound heritage in India, which has laid a great impact on art, philosophy, and culture, whose legacy continues till the present day. Buddha's teachings consisted of 4 noble truths, or Chatvari Arya Satyani. Those were Dukkha, which means that there is suffering in the world, Samudaya, which means that there is a cause of suffering, Nirodha means that the suffering can be removed, and for the removal of the suffering, one has to follow the Athanga Marga or the Eightfold Path. Buddha had condemned the sacrifices of animals, complicated rituals, caste system, and the supremacy of the priests, which had revolutionized the religious life of that era. Over a span of 45 years, Buddha had spent traveling across the Gangetic plains to deliver his sermons and had established an order of monks and nuns known as the Sangha. Ashoka, the Mauryan emperor, had embraced Buddhism and had adopted the path of nonviolence. Ashoka has established Buddhism as an important religion and sent messengers to different parts of Asia. His rock edicts, pillars, are the earliest evidence of Buddhist heritage in India that was patronized by the state. Now, let us discuss briefly about the Buddhist architectural heritage of India. The Buddhist heritage in India can be found in monumental and architectural form, which defines the artistic expression. Buddhist architecture developed in 3 forms. The first form was the stupas. The stupas are of domical structure that represent the relics of Buddha or a prominent Buddhist monk. In Sanchi of Madhya Pradesh, there are several stupas, and Sanchi is one of the most well-preserved and studied sites of Buddhism. Among the several stupas, the Great Sanchi Stupa is the most prominent one, which was built by Ashoka in the 3rd century BC. Over the next centuries, the expansion of the stupas kept taking place. The stupa at Sanchi is a hemispherical dome surrounded by a Vedika and 4 gateways known as the Toranas, and it depicts scenes from Buddha's life and Jataka tales in the narrative style. The first scientific excavation of the stupa took place in 1851 under Major Alexander Cunningham and his colleague Lieutenant Colonel F.C. Maisy. They found the relics of Buddha's 2 chief disciples. After the stupa was built by Ashoka, later additions were made during that period of Sunga dynasty, Satavahanas, and during the Gupta dynasty. The Sanchi Stupa has been recognized as a World Heritage Site by the UNESCO, and several attempts have been taken by the Government of India and by the Archaeological Survey of India. The monuments at Sanchi also comprises of a group of Buddhist monuments, which are the monolithic pillars, palaces, temples, and monasteries. These date back to the 2nd and the 1st centuries BC. Most of the stupas were built over the centuries, and it reveals the gradual evolution of the sculptural and architectural style. The changes in the religious thought and practices could also be seen. Generally, the stupas were located near the great cities of their time, along with major trade and pilgrimage routes, with some places connecting the important events of the life of Buddha. Some important sites where the stupas were built were Mrigadeva near Kashi, the Dharmarajika stupa outside Takshila, Amravati outside Dharanikota, which was the Satavahana capital, and Nagarjunakonda outside Vijayapuri, the Ikshvaku capital. These stupas share common features, but regional distinctions could also be seen in these architecture. Thus, the stupas, for its unique architectural and sculptural tradition, carry a rich heritage of Buddhist history in India and are recognized as major heritage sites. Secondly, there were the viharas. The viharas were the monastery or the residences of the Buddhist monks. These were rock-cut architecture and formed extensive complexes. Initially, the viharas functioned as the temporary shelters for the monks in a rainy season, but later became an important form of Buddhist architecture. The Ajanta caves, the Ellora caves, Karli caves, Kanheri caves are prime examples of the site with multiple viharas. The site of Nalanda comprises of a vihara and a scholastic institution, that is, the Nalanda University. It dates back from 3rd century BC to the 13th century CE until it was destroyed. Along with the viharas, the site also contains stupas and shrines. The Nalanda University, for a period of 800 years, had engaged in organizing transmission of knowledge. This site signifies the development of Buddhism into a major religion. The site at Nalanda comprises of 23 hectares of land with 11 viharas and 14 temples, along with other smaller shrines. The site was excavated by the Archaeological Survey of India in the 20th century, and efforts have been taken to preserve the site. The site at Nalanda has been recognized by the UNESCO as a World Heritage Site because of its established and planned architectural and artistic principles. The emergence of a chatya that reflects and represents the changing religious practices. Nalanda was also a center for higher learning till the 13th century, and its merit-based approach have embraced all the contemporary sources of knowledge and systems of learning that were practiced in the Indian subcontinent. Even in the contemporary period, Nalanda continues to inspire modern-day universities like Navanalanda Mahavihara, Nalanda University, etc. Thirdly, there were chatyas. The chatyas were temples or shrines with a prayer hall which enclosed the stupas. The Bhajas chatya is one of the earliest remaining chatya, measuring 16.75 meters long and 8 meters wide. With a vaulted ceiling, the whole is divided in a central nave and 2 aisles. The chatya at Karle represents the Hinayana rock construction. The rock-cut chatyas at Ajanta, Ellora, Bagh, Bhaja, Karle, Nasik and Kanheri are important examples. These have been declared as important heritage sites. The Ajanta caves, for its unique artistic achievement, its style, and with its direct association with the history of Buddhism, have been declared by the UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. The other important heritage sites of Buddhism are Bodh Gaya, where Buddha had gained enlightenment. Ashoka had built the Mahabodhi temple, which is one of the earliest brick Buddhist temples standing in India. The site of Sarnath is an important Buddhist site where Buddha delivered his first sermon. The Deer Park, where Buddha delivered his first sermon, feature the ruins of many stupas and chatyas. Kushinagar is the place where Buddha was buried after he attained Mahaparinirvana. The Mahaparinirvana temple is an important temple in Kushinagar and has a statue of Buddha. Like the other sites, various forms of Buddhist architecture are found. Orissa, Sankisa, Nagarjunakonda, Amravati, etc. are some important sites where various Buddhist stupas and temples could be found. The uniqueness of the artistic and architectural elements of each site has brought out the local variations of art in different regions of India that has been reflected in the Buddhist architecture. These important sites of Buddhism have been recognized as important centers of heritage, and various measures have been taken to preserve these centers. Apart from architecture, Buddhist heritage was also carried on by universities at Nalanda, Vikramshila, and Takshila, which attracted scholars from various parts of the world. But from the 7th century, Buddhism faced a gradual decline in India, and by the 13th century, Buddhism had almost been wiped from the country. But the heritage of Buddhism prevailed. The sites were discovered in the 19th and the 20th century, and Pali texts were translated that had reawakened India to its Buddhist past. At a contemporary period, the Buddhist heritage of India has a vibrant impact in the culture of India, and the site attracts millions of pilgrims and visitors across the world. Now, let us discuss briefly about the Mughal heritage of India. The Mughal Empire had been established by Babur in 1526 and declined in 1858. The Mughal rule was the period where art, culture, and architecture in the Indian subcontinent had seen a new turn. The Mughal heritage in India can be experienced in the monuments, language, food, administration, etc. The Mughals have created a great impact in the heritage of the Indian subcontinent, as it represents a blend of the Persian, Central Asian, and the Indian traditions. This has created unique Indo-Islamic civilizations and defines India's identity. The most important element of the Mughal heritage is the architecture that defines the artistry, the power, and the engineering of the Mughals. Across the generations, evolutions in the Mughal architecture could be seen. The early structures of the Mughals represented and reflected the Central Asian style. During Akbar's reign, a distinctive style emerged where the Indian elements were blended with Persian styles. The Agra Fort, the Fatehpur Sikri are the examples where the fusion of the Indian and Persian elements of architecture has been done. The Buland Darwaza in Fatehpur Sikri was constructed in 1575 to commemorate the victory of Akbar in Gujarat. The Fatehpur Sikri is managed by the Archaeological Survey of India, and necessary steps have been taken for the conservation and preservation of it. The Humayun's tomb is another fascinating example of Mughal heritage, which was built in 1570. Persian and Indian craftsmen worked together. Humayun's tomb was the first grand mausoleum that signified the architectural style of the Mughals. The tomb had inspired the major monumental innovation of the 17th century Mughal period, like the Taj Mahal. These sites are major centers of tourist centers, and tourists from across the world visit it every year. The reign of Jahangir witnessed a new era in the history of Mughal period. This era is celebrated for the contributions to art, architecture, and cultural synthesis. Jahangir's era is considered as the golden age of Mughal painting. Jahangir's paintings depict naturalism and realism, for which he had brought legendary painters. Ustad Mansoor was given the title of Nadir al-Azhar, and Abul Hasan was given the title of Nadir al-Zaman. Since Jahangir was influenced by the European art, Mughal artists began to incorporate European techniques like perspective, light shadow, and the use of putti into their work, creating unique Indo-European style. The monuments that developed during the reign of Jahangir were the tomb of Akbar and the tomb of Itimad-ud-Dawla. The tomb of Itimad-ud-Dawla is the first Mughal monument that was built entirely of white marble, and it incorporated pietra dura, which were the mosaic of semi-precious stones. It was used on a large scale, and it was the technique that defined the buildings of Shah Jahan's era. Jahangir had also built numerous gardens in Kashmir, among which the Shalimar Bagh in Srinagar and the Nishad Baghs on the bank of Dal Lake are famous. The Shalimar Bagh is a masterpiece of Mughal garden design, which has a terraced layout, flowing water channels, and fountains. The gardens have left an imprint in the heritage of the Mughal era. Though the contributions of Jahangir have been overshadowed by the works of Shah Jahan, but his contribution to the culture of India in the field of painting and gardens has left an indelible mark. The reign of Shah Jahan is known as the golden period in the history of Mughals. During his era, Mughal architecture and culture reached at its zenith. The structures built by Shah Jahan are characterized by perfect symmetry, extensive use of white marble, intricate lay of pietra dura, and a sense of sublime scale. The Taj Mahal is a masterpiece built by Shah Jahan in the memory of his wife, Mumtaz Mahal. It is the world's famous example of love and the greatest symbol of Mughal architecture. The mausoleum is represented by perfect bilateral symmetry, the majestic central dome, and the four slender minarets, the exquisite pietra dura on white marble, and the vast Charbagh garden. This architectural wonder represents the complete synthesis of Persian, Islamic, and Indian architectural traditions refined to perfection. Shah Jahanabad, or Old Delhi, was a massive urban planning project of Shah Jahan. The Red Fort is the imperial palace fortress within the city. Shah Jahan had combined red sandstone with white marble to build the fort. The Diwani Khas and the Diwani Arm depicts Shah Jahan's preference of marble in his monuments. The Jama Masjid is one of the largest and magnificent mosques in India that faces the Red Fort. It consists of a vast courtyard, 3 domes, and 2 towering minarets. The Moti Masjid, or the Pearl Mosque, is an example of purity and perfect proportion that was built entirely in white marble. The Jahangir's tomb and Sheesh Mahal at Agra Fort and Lahore Fort are significant architectural landmarks of Shah Jahan's reign. Apart from the architectural masterpieces, the reign of Shah Jahan witnessed the perfection of pietra dura, which is a technique of inlaying semi-precious stones into marble. The floral and geometric patterns and calligraphy of the Taj Mahal and Diwani Khas are the finest examples. The Mughal style of painting during this era became more formal, courtly, and focused on portraits, unlike the paintings of Jahangir's era. The Padshah-nama contains illustrations of court ceremonies, battles, and reception that served as propaganda to showcase the wealth and power of the emperor. The last important Mughal builder was Aurangzeb, whose reign saw the orthodox interpretation of Islam. He had built a Badshahi mosque at Lahore and Bibi Ka Maqbara in Aurangabad. The Bibi Ka Maqbara, known as the Taj Mahal of the Deccan, is carved from white marble. Its buildings and ceilings boast intricate designs. The meticulous use of white marble and floral patterns exemplifies the distinctive characteristics of Mughal craftsmanship. Beyond the architectural wonders, the Mughals were also patronizers of paintings. They fostered the miniature painting tradition, which flourished under them and created visual record of portraits, flora, and fauna. The Mughals had also brought a change in the Indian cuisine. Ingredients like saffron, dried fruits were introduced in the dishes, and new cooking techniques were developed. Biryani, pulao, korma, sheer khurma, shahi tukra are direct legacy of the Mughal court. Persian was the official court language, and its interaction with local languages in the markets and military camps gave birth to Urdu in Perso-Arabian script. Also, The administrative framework like the Mansabdari and Jagirtari was later adopted by the subsequent rulers of the 18th and the 19th centuries. Thus, the Mughals have created a legacy that has left an imprint in the heritage of India. The Mughal heritage in India is not a foreign implant, but a culmination of India's culture and society, which synchronized the elements of the Islamic world that makes it unique. Now, let us discuss about the colonial circuits of heritage in India. In colonial India, the concept of heritage was a complex construct born from the collision of the ancient civilization and the machinery of British imperialism. The colonial period defined and discovered Indian heritage and often weaponized it, which had left a legacy that continues to shape the history of the Indian subcontinent. Let us discuss briefly about the heritage of pre-colonial era. Before the British conquest of India, heritage in India was mainly a decentralized phenomenon. Local traditions were included and it was mainly maintained by the communities and royal patrons. During that period, a fort was not a monument, but power was functioned from it. Thus, heritage had defined the daily life of people without the European distinction between a historical monument and a building that functioned. During the colonial period, the Europeans have left behind physical, cultural, administrative, educational, and architectural imprints which have influenced and shaped India's cities, institutions, laws, and cultural practices. Let us discuss about the architectural heritage of colonial India. Percy Brown has made a systematic study in the architectural heritage of colonial India. Brown has divided the colonial architecture into three phases. The early phase was marked by simple and utilitarian buildings built by the East India Company. The buildings were characterized by the use of neoclassical style of architecture with symmetry, columns, and pediments. The examples are Writers' Building in Kolkata, Fort St. George expansion in Madras, and the Government House at Kolkata. In the middle phase, also known as the imperial phase, it was characterized by the use of Indo-Saracenic styles. Since the British had consolidated their political power, their architecture during this phase became grand, and their goal was to create a visual language of power and civilization. It was an attempt to blend Islamic, Hindu, and Gothic elements. The famous examples of these architecture are Victoria Memorial, Madras High Court, Mayo College, Prince of Wales Museum, etc. During the later phase, the modern Indian architecture was characterized by imperial classicism and modern planning with a blend of Western and Indian elements. As a result, a distinct and modern style had developed in that era of colonial architecture. Sir Edwin Lutyens was the chief architect of the capital city of British India, Delhi, which has been planned in a grand and geometric manner. Classical architecture has been influenced with the Indian elements like jalis and chhatris, and the Buddhist stupa is used in an innovative way to form the Rashtrapati Bhavan. The India Gate, the Rajpath, the Connaught Palace, etc. are some of the examples. Delhi's architecture is a blend of diverse styles like classical, Islamic, modern, postmodern, blended with vernacular traditions from the entire subcontinent. Apart from the British architectural heritage, Portuguese, French, and Dutch architecture was characterized by Baroque-influenced churches and town planning, warehouses, forts, and trading lodges. Some examples are Basilica Bomchases, Saint Cathedral in Goa, Aguada Fort, Diu Fort, etc. During the colonial period, various urban centers emerged. Shimla, Darjeeling, Ooty, and Shillong were the hill stations that emerged. Overseas trade resulted in the growth of port cities like Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai. Development of colonial infrastructure like the railways resulted in the growth of towns like Jamshedpur and Asansol. Indian heritage in the colonial period has not been confined to architecture only. The British had established a centralized and bureaucratic structure that replaced the earlier systems. The Indian Civil Service, which is now known as the Indian Administrative Service, was the steel frame of the British Raj, which still continues to be the backbone of India's administration. Also, the form of parliamentary system of government with a bicameral legislature has been adopted from the British model after independence. Rule of law, a constitutional document, and an independent judiciary are directly inherited from the British government. The Indian Penal Code IPC of 1860, the Code of Criminal Procedure CRPC, laid the foundation of Indian legal system. The British had also created single centralized authority and laid the foundation for the modern Indian state and established the Indian Army in its modern form. Though the British had contributed to Indian heritage, yet they had fundamentally transformed India's economy to serve their own industrial interests that had left a long-lasting impact. Deindustrialization and economic trade were the policies of the colonial rulers that has left a deep impact in the economy of the country. The Asiatic Society, founded in 1784, the Archaeological Survey of India, had embarked a journey to rediscover the past of India that revealed the glories of India's past. The colonial period left a deep impact in India's heritage. It had laid a framework to understand the past of India and has contributed to the architecture, administration, law that has an important role in the contemporary period. On the other hand, the colonial rule have also left a strain and fractured the past, politicized history, divided the country on communal lines, and created civilizational narrative for its own interests. The heritage of colonial India is of dual tone, where on one hand it has gloried the ancient past, and on the other hand it has created a framework of categorization, contestation, and division, and it continues to shape modern India. We have come to an end of today's brief discussion. Hope you have understood the ideas of Buddhist, Mughal, and colonial heritage of India. In the next unit, we shall discuss about the key studies of Northeast India. Thank you for watching.